Kat here, and today we're gonna be having a mindset conversation. It has been a minute since we talked, so I figured let's have a conversation around people pleasing because I feel like I've been seeing it all over the internet, and as the world is starting to go back to some version of normal, I want to get your friendships, your mindset, your life right as you get reintroduced to the world. So if you're someone who feels like you may be a people pleaser or might exhibit people pleasing tendencies, that is okay. We are going to get you together right now. Hop on in on this conversation. Go ahead, like, subscribe. Be so happy to have you because we're going to get into it like right now, right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be talking about is just what the heck people pleasing is. So we're going to talk about what it is, why we do it, and ultimately what are some of the, I call them indicators that you're doing it, and how do you overcome it. I think that it can feel really stifling when you are a people pleaser and feeling like, this is just who I am. I don't know how to fix this. I got you. We're going to get it together in a second, okay? So let's go back to the start of just talking about what the heck is people pleasing. So I'm going to give you my definition of it as a coach, what I've seen in the women that I've worked with, the people I've worked with, the research I've done. It may look a little bit different from yours, but at the bare bones, this is what people pleasing is, okay? It is the pursuit of another person's satisfaction at the expense of your own well-being, your own mental health, your own boundaries, your values, your peace, your sanity, right? Your time, resources, all of those things, right? Basically prioritizing others and what they want you to do over yourself to such an extent though that you're almost damaging your sense of self-worth. You're almost damaging your sense of self. Now, a really important undercurrent, I kind of say, to people pleasing is this need for external validation, right? We all have insecurities, so I want to be super clear about that. But when people are exhibiting people-pleasing behaviors, it's ultimately because they are seeking external validation, right? You have some insecurity and you think that by doing all these things, by constantly saying yes, by overperforming, overcommitting, over-agreeing, all these things, you're somehow, filling that gap. You're filling that insecurity. And that's really what is the best instigator for people who are people pleasers, is a desire to kind of outshine that insecurity, to look for external validation as a way to feel whole and feel internally validated. It's a really damaging, very toxic, can be really stifling, behavior to get into. And so we're going to talk about how we help you get out of that, because you deserve more. You deserve to be whole and feel whole as you are, without the approval and satisfaction of others, and there's no need to outperform yourself or outperform an insecurity that you have, right? So on the flip side, a question I do get a lot is, well, Kat, if that's people pleasing, then what is just being a kind person, right? What's the difference between people pleasing versus just being kind? So that's another thing I want to call out, because let me tell you, our world, we need kind people. The last thing I want is a bunch of narcissistic people or people who have narcissistic personality disorders, right? Running around being like, well, Kat said I should stop doing things for others. No. It's not what I said. Let's talk about the difference. Not all kind people are people pleasers, okay? I'm gonna say it again. Not all kind people are people pleasers, okay? You can be a kind person and not a people pleaser. How is that so, right? So it is absolutely healthy, normal, necessary, in fact, right? To do things for others, okay? It is fine to decide, you know what? I care for my wife. I care for my friend. Therefore, I'm going to take time out of my day and do something for them. I'm going to do this thing that even though it's not serving me, right? I care for them and their well-being, and I want to show appreciation for them, right? The difference between people pleasing and being a kind person is, usually kind people they don't ground their sense of self and their self-worth in that person's satisfaction, right? They're doing that thing because they know it's the right thing to do, because they love that person, because they want to show appreciation, right? They want that person to feel appreciated, feel some sort of gratitude, or know that they're seen, or whatever it is, right? That person's valuable to you, right? So you're making a conscious choice to do something that maybe, yes, cost you money, take time away from your day, right, may require you to maybe shift some priorities, but you're not doing it because you need it to feel worthy, right? That's the critical difference. Versus with people pleasing, there's this real habitual, almost like, like consistent theme of putting others before yourself, constantly sacrificing yourself, like almost treating yourself like a sacrificial lamb that kind people aren't doing. Yes, there's sometimes, doing things that they don't want to do or supporting others, but it's not the same sacrificial, I think, mentality around it. And I think that's really important to denote. With that being said, I want to be super clear that most people who are people pleasers are kind people. I know that might be a controversial point of view. And I know that a lot of people want to make it seem like people who are people pleasers are like fake nice, or who are like, they're in reality evil or narcissistic or all these things. That's not true, actually. A lot of science has shown that people who are more prone to agreeableness, right, who want to be more agreeable, who don't like confrontation, who don't like conflict, are the people who tend to be people pleasers. So the reality is that most people pleasers actually are kind people, and they're not just fake nice. It's just unfortunate that they are doing it to a way that's almost detrimental. They're being kind in a way that's almost detrimental to themselves, right? And leads to a whole host of issues that we're going to get into in a second. So that is a little bit of the difference between people pleasing versus being kind, how they manifest differently, and what kind of the definitions are around each of those. Let's talk about why the heck we even people please to begin with. And if you're one of my clients watching this, and you know that I think a lot of our current, present adult tendencies can largely be tied to our upbringing, our childhood, right? Things like that. The reality is we really overlook just how big of an impact child rearing, our relations with our parents, friends, siblings, family members growing up really informs how we see ourselves, how we see the world, how we expect to be treated, how we engage with people, right? All these really important relational things are formed in childhood, and you carry a lot of that throughout your life until adulthood, until someone tells you, that's not right, or this is how it needs to be done differently, or whatever it is. And sometimes you never change, right? Childhood is a really big indicator for why people engage in certain people-pleasing tendencies. Trauma is another one, and that can be related to childhood trauma, to be honest. I mean, many of us go through traumatic childhood experiences. Those can really inform who we are as an adult. But outside of just childhood trauma, there can also be any sort of relationship trauma, right? If you were in a relationship that was very toxic, where the person was very controlling, where you kind of were in this yes sir, no sir type of mentality, right? Where you were kind of chained to that person's, perspective of you, treatment of you. They controlled what you ate, what you did. All of these things can lead to, okay, how can I just serve this person and do what they say of me so that I can, stay physically safe, or whatever it is. You kind of become, kind of controlled by them. And so that can lead to, I think, a lot of sacrificial mentality of like, you have to serve some other person in order to be loved. Even if it wasn't a controlling relationship, just unhealthy in the sense that you had to give of yourself in order to feel affection and be desired, right? That can cause really toxic mentality as well. And then of course, just any type of physical assault as well. All these things can really lead to people-pleasing tendencies. I think the other big, source of people-pleasing tendencies is just general insecurity. It kind of goes to what I was saying before, right? All people pleasers have some level, we all have insecurities, by the way, but there's some undercurrent of insecurity, of needing to prove yourself type of mentality. And so when you are someone who has insecurities, you almost feel as if, you have to compensate for that insecurity by overperforming. And so even if it can be an insecurity that feels unrelated to the people pleasing, like a physical body insecurity or intellectual insecurity, maybe you're insecure about your situation or financial, whatever it is, it can manifest kind of unsurprisingly and lead to your need to overcompensate for whatever that insecurity is. So trauma, your childhood upbringing, insecurities, all these things can really lead to people-pleasing behaviors. Now, how do you know if you're a people pleaser or not? This is the question I'm sure you guys are all wondering. And it really is, a couple of common things. People pleasing is a habitual thing, right? And I want to be clear not to call it a character trait, because I don't want to assign that to you, but it almost is. Like, across situation, across circumstance, regardless of the person, you're habitually exhibiting these things. And I call that out because there are some people who I say can get more out of me than others. Like my mama. My mama's my best friend. I'll do anything for her, right? So my boundaries with her look a little bit different than other people in my life, and that makes sense, right? So I want to be super clear that when we talk about people pleasing, it really is this like cross situation, habitual behavior that you're exhibiting. So some of those things might look like constantly saying yes when really you just want to say no, right? Saying yes when you don't have the time, when you're already incredibly busy. Lying and saying you have time when you know darn well you ain't got no more time, right? Doing things that betray your boundaries. Doing things that are against your beliefs and your values. Doing things that feel antithetical, that feel contrary to what feels good to you. And what I mean by that is oftentimes after you've agreed to something or you've taken on something, whatever it is, I want you to really assess how you feel after doing that. That'll tell you if you're a people pleaser or not. And what I mean by this is if immediately you sign up for something, let's say at work, or you agree to go to a party with some girlfriends or whatever it is, and then 2 seconds afterwards you think, well, darn it, I don't want to do that, right? If you feel resentful, if you feel frustrated, like you just got yourself into a situation you don't want to be in, oftentimes that choice was rooted in people pleasing. On the contrary, if you do that thing and you only did it because you want external validation, right? You only did it because you wanted them to say, oh, Kat's so, she's so accommodating. Gosh, she's such a team player. If you're looking for that external validation, that's another sign that you're people pleasing. And thirdly, if you sign up for that thing, you say yes, whatever it is, and then you don't get the validation, and then you feel frustrated, that's a great indication that you were really only seeking out the validation, not the actual outcome itself, if that makes sense. So these are all really good clues for you to see if you're people pleasing or not. But the biggest one is really thinking about how do you feel after you've agreed to something or, said yes to something. Are you agreeing to stuff that you don't even believe in? Are you just agreeing to agree, right? You say you love this thing, but you actually hate it. Things like that, like really look at the inconsistency between what you're saying externally with people and then how you truly feel, right? So those are some indicators that if you're experiencing people-pleasing tendencies, I want you to kind of think about. So let's talk a little bit about why it's so darn damaging. And this is getting to really just how people-pleasing affects relationships. Not just you, but your relationship with people. The resentment is just supreme with people pleasers because of this. Kind of like what I was saying before, you're kind of treating yourself like the sacrificial lamb. So you're doing all this stuff to accommodate other people. In reality, one, they either don't know that you're really doing it to accommodate them. They think that's just, you're happy to do it, right? They don't know how much you're truly sacrificing for them. Or two, they just don't care and they'll start to take advantage of you. In either case, it leads to resentment, frustration, and a power imbalance in a relationship, right? You're constantly being the person who's taking on too much, and that's not fair to you. So it leads to this incredible resentment, and as that resentment builds up, it leads to severed relations. The other reason why people-pleasing damages relationships is because it leads to also very shallow and superficial relations. And let me speak to why I'm saying that. The reality is that people-pleasing by nature is grounded on the belief that you have to earn love. You have to earn validation. You have to earn affection, whatever it is. It kind of treats affection, it treats your validation as a commodity. Like you have to do something in order to earn that affection, in order to earn that validation. When that is not true, my love, you are a whole person, right? Your personhood is valuable and lovable and desirable as it is, regardless of what you do for someone else or if you're serving someone else, okay? But with people pleasing, because it basically grounds your worth on what you're able to do for other people, think about the flip side of that. When you're not doing anything, then all of a sudden you feel as if you're unlovable. You feel as if you're not desirable, right? And that leads you to not showing up as your full self. That person doesn't even know who you really are because you're agreeing to things that aren't true to you. You're saying yes to things when you should be saying no, to really sculpt and shape who you truly are and let that person know who you truly are, right? And so it leads to this real superficiality around relationships and people not really knowing all of you and who you are. And that can be really challenging, both for you as the person who's a people pleaser, because you feel isolated, even in parties and in friend groups, right? Because no one really knows you. But it can also be really frustrating and confusing for your partners as well. In addition to the severed relations, a really big implication, I should say, of people pleasing that's very overlooked is that it just stops you from achieving your goals. And you may be looking at me like, Kat, that sounds dramatic. Like, that seems really dramatic. It's not dramatic. Think about it. Your time is so valuable, right? Your time needs to be filled up with things that add to your goals. And if you're not doing things that are adding to your goal, right, that's a problem, right? If you're doing things that are serving other people, that are constantly for other people, if you're constantly so focused on how can I serve this person, how could you possibly make any time for yourself, your own goals, or your own vision for your life, right? And so as we look at the grand picture, people pleasing, constant years worth of people pleasing can really set you back on the trajectory of your life, your goals, the things that you're trying to achieve. And that may sound dramatic, but it's not, right? Constantly deprioritizing yourself is very damaging to getting, to trying to get the things that you want in life. And so just being mindful that not only does people pleasing sever relationships, it really severs the achievement of your goals, right? So let's talk about, what are some ways that you can combat people pleasing and what could this look like to help you? So my first advice when it comes to combating people pleasing is getting super clear on your life's mission, your life's goal. And this can kind of sound a little like big picture, too big picture, but it's really important for the following reason. When you're super clear on your goal in life, who you want to be, the outcome you want, right? Then you therefore need to think about what are the things that will get me there. Naturally, then you will start to think about, when presented with options and trade-offs, is this thing going to get me to my goal, right? So having an end goal in sight, knowing your goal, what you want, is a really important filter to kind of weigh options, to weigh different trade-offs when you're presented with options, right? What's the trade-off of me not doing this thing versus doing this thing? And will it get me to my goal or not? So a really critical question I want you to ask yourself when presented with any opportunity, any task, people are asking you for your help, whatever it is, I want you to say, okay, who is the person that I want to be in my life? Okay, cool, you got that in mind, good. Would that person do this thing? Or better yet, if that person were in this situation, how would they act? That is the perfect filter I want you to use for anything that you are presented with. That'll help you tremendously in saying no more and prioritizing your time properly. And you'll find that once you have a reason for why, you're saying no, something that's grounding you in your mission in your life, it'll be much easier to say no to stuff, to stop people pleasing, because it doesn't help you get to where you want to be. So first things first is getting super crisp and clear on who you want to be, the things you want to achieve, and then acting in alignment with that mission, with that person that you want to be. The second thing I want you to do is to really think about the root causes of it. Thinking about the root causes of why you are doing it, either tied to insecurity, trauma, or low self-esteem. It really is one of those things, okay? So I want you to think about, what is the root cause of my people pleasing? What are the instances where you've noticed you've been people pleasing? And then start to behave in counter ways to that, right? So for example, if you know that you people please whenever your coworkers are looking for someone to pick up some extra work, stop doing that, right? I want you to really explicitly name and list out those things that you're people pleasing about, but more importantly, think about getting back to that root cause. I want you to tackle that root cause of why I'm even doing this to begin with, right? So if it is an insecurity, you need to deal with the insecurity, right? If it is about abuse or trauma or whatever it is, how are you going to deal with that, right? Is it therapy? Is it coaching? Is it hypnotherapy? What is it? If it's fear of rejection, how do you deal with the fear of rejection, right? You need to deal with the source of it, but then stop agreeing and manifesting the people-pleasing behaviors, right? And that goes to writing the list out and being super clear on the ways that you are perpetuating people-pleasing behaviors and then stopping to do it, right? The next thing I will say that's really helpful when it comes to people-pleasing and stopping it is to just start prioritizing yourself. And this can be really tough for people, but really helpful way to think about it is, what are the things that matter to you? I call them your values, right? What are the things that matter to you? And I'll tell you mine. So for me, it's my physical health, right? Getting a workout in for me every day is a must. My mental health and my knowledge. As a coach, it's really important to me that I prioritize my own learning, my reading, my research. So I don't like when things interfere with that. My friendships and intimacy and connection. I don't like my time to be disrupted. So for me, when people reach out to me with last minute requests or wanting to hang out in like 30 minutes, things like that, it's a negative to me because it's very much against my values. So I want you to spend some time thinking about, what are my values? And I call your values your non-negotiables, right? They're your must-haves, that regardless of the situation, the task that is being asked of you, who's asking it of you, right? When it's a higher up person, whether it's, a coworker who's more, senior than you, or a partner who maybe has a weird power dynamic over you, it can feel really difficult to say no. But by getting super clear on your values and your must-haves, you know what your non-negotiables are, and anything that interferes with that is a negative, okay? So getting super clear on those, and that requires you to set boundaries, right? You have to set boundaries. These boundaries will be permeated if you do not set them. So the more clear you can get on what you're willing and not willing to accept, the better, okay? The last thing I will say is, when it comes to stopping people-pleasing behaviors, is the response that you're actually giving. And this might be really, really tactical and descriptive for some of you, but what I found is that it can be very difficult for people to say no. So first of all, if you can say no in person, fantastic. Say no. I say no all the time. I have no problem saying no. But if saying no is a problem for you, I instead want you to say, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Let me get back to you, right? Next time a person asks you, oh, you want to come to this party? Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Next time your boss asks you to do something, let me think about that. I'll get back to you, right? Because that buys you time. A lot of science has shown that your decision making is actually improved with a slight delay of like 50 to 100 milliseconds, okay? And so a lot of people pleasers, and I know because I used to have these traits myself, immediately hop on and agree to do stuff without really, thinking about, can I really take this thing on? Should I really be saying yes to this? And so saying, let me get back to you, buys you a little bit of time, okay? So that's your verbal response. And then you're getting back to them is probably going to be via text message or email. Then in the text message and email, you can say, no, okay? That is what I tell my clients to do, because a lot of times saying no can feel really uncomfortable verbally to do. It's really difficult for us to do. We don't like to see people's reactions. We are social creatures by nature. We don't want people to be disappointed, all these things. But when you say, let me get back to you, like, okay, yeah, get back with me. Let me know. And then when you get back with them, and email, text, whatever it is, call. Some people don't like to call because they can get nervous as well. But then you say no. And better yet, the less you don't have to justify anything, right? Like, the less you can justify, the more you exercise this muscle, the more comfortable you'll get at doing it. One thing I'll encourage you not to say is, I can't. A lot of people say, I can't, but what you'll find, you probably have seen this, is that people will try to push the bounds of when you try to say, I can't. So, because for some reason, I don't know what it is, but it elicits this, well, let me see if there's any leeway in this person's, plans or time or whatever it is. When you say, I can't, it opens the door for discussion versus saying either no or I don't want to do this. I don't have the time, I don't have the availability, right? They're more of a powerful stance, and it allows for less, I call it less trifling, right, responses from people. People don't try you as much when you say those things. So I hope those really help you all. There is absolutely no shame in being a people pleaser. It is a very natural, normal response as a social human, which we all are, right? It's a normal thing, but it's not healthy, right? It is something that we need to normalize because it's so pervasive in our society. But I don't want it to be the go-to, because ultimately you don't deserve to be putting others before yourself. And you deserve to feel whole without the validation of others, without needing to perform or outperform or do whatever, prove yourself, or all these things that we've perpetuated as a society. So I hope those really help you. As always, do not hesitate to email, reach out. If you're looking for a coach, hit me up, send me an email. I would love to work with you. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and take care. Bye.